Yo guys, today we're going to be checking out the appeal of One Piece thanks to Zach Parks and his recommendation down below. If you find any videos on this channel that you see are cut or edited or blurred, go check out my Patreon, it's all uncut and unedited there. Let's go.
For a while now, there has been a certain ominous... For a while now,
What does it say? While.
there has been a certain ominous shadow cast across this channel. You see, as a YouTuber, I'm generally known for four things: my long, in-depth videos, my love of all things shonen, my utterly flawless spelling, and my absolutely perfect pronunciation of the Japanese language. And the problem with those former two is that at some points it means that I need to do a video on the series One Piece.
Okay.
Which is fine, I like One Piece quite a lot in fact. But the issue comes from how insanely long the series is, currently residing at its 833rd chapter, and the staggering breadth
I thought it had like over 1,000 episodes. Oh, this is 8 years old. Wow, okay.
of its world, which, according to the One Piece wiki, has currently 866 named characters. I know because I counted and it took a long time. So how does one talk about such a massive series like One Piece?
That's a lot of names, man.
Well, the answer that I've come to, at least, is the same way that one devours a whale. And that is...
Why does it say WH like that? What? I've never heard that
piece
before.
by piece. One Piece.
Yeah, that's me right now, I can't lie. Fuck, no, that's not good.
And so, what we're going to do here today is that rather than go straight into a full-blown why you should watch/read, which, don't worry, we will get to, is to first put out a shorter video covering what I consider some of the broader structural aspects of One Piece, which will then free us up and allow us to take a much deeper dive into the characters and themes later on. So with this in mind, my friends, please dive into...
Yo, never saw him like this in openings. Bro looks like stressed.
So with this in mind, my
He was always smiling in the openings, but then he looks kind of stressed
friends,
there.
please sit back, relax, and consider this an entree with the main course still to come. And let's discuss the appeal of One Piece.
Okay.
Where to start?
Yeah, let's get to it.
I first encountered One Piece in 2006 on the UK television version of Toonami, and unbeknownst to me at the time, what I was watching was the infamous 4Kids dub, which would become well known over time for its questionable translation and excessive amounts of censorship. And even despite these factors, I really came to enjoy the adventures of Nami, Zoro, and of course Luffy. The series had a unique playfulness to it that made it stand out from other more stoic series I'd seen up until this point, like Bleach and Dragon Ball Z. And even in the show's more dramatic moments, there was always a tremendous amount of fun to be had. Of course, as I watched the imaginative pirate adventure on my parents' old TV, what I was completely unaware of was what a world-shattering phenomenon I was actually dealing with. That revelation would only strike me several years later, when, on a trip to Japan, it became obvious what a massive deal One Piece actually was. Around every corner in every shop seemed to lie another new piece of Straw Hat Pirate merchandise. Luffy and his ragtag crew were everywhere on everything. One Piece branded bread, One Piece bath salts, even entire One Piece branded shops. It was incredible.
Yeah, I saw something about this, that One Piece is like one of the biggest selling comics in the world, right? Amongst Batman and Superman and stuff. I find that kind of insane.
To see how what I thought was a simple show about pirates utterly dominate the mass consciousness of a single country. The closest thing I could liken it to was the Simpsons mania of early 90s America. This was, of course, before I started looking into things like global sales figures and weekly shonen rankings. And if I had, I would have known things like the fact that One Piece has sold over 400 million units worldwide, making it the third biggest selling comic in existence, recently beating out
I was just talking about this, what the hell?
Spider-Man for the number 3 spot, leaving only Batman and Superman ahead of it. And even
I read about this stuff.
then,
That's so
in
cool.
2016, Batman sold 1,859,956 units, and Superman sold 828,069 units. And you could even roughly double the sales of both series by taking into account all their offshoot titles.
Yeah.
And it still wouldn't even come close to the 12 million in sales that One Piece sold that same year.
Wow.
And where
man.
things really start to get crazy is that if these trends were to continue and One Piece were to run for another decade, it would nearly certainly surpass Batman in lifetime global sales.
Yo, this
And
is
if it were to
insane.
run for another 2 decades, which for Oda's sake I hope doesn't happen, it would surpass even Superman, becoming the biggest selling comic in existence. Now, I'm not saying I think this will happen, but it's a hell of a thing to consider. And so, how has a series about a pirate boy made of rubber managed to capture the hearts and minds of so many people worldwide? Well, to put it simply, the primary appeal of One Piece is the simple premise of adventure. And yes, that is also the core concept of countless other shonen series, but nothing really captures the same sense of scale and exploration as the world of pirates. Our
Was that
hero on
ship
the same sense
flying?
of scale
What the
and
hell?
exploration as the world of pirates. Our hero on this voyage is the energetic young pirate, Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy is a simple character with a simple goal, to find the mysterious treasure only known as One Piece, and in doing so, become king of the pirates. This was Luffy's primary motivator from chapter 1 and remains so in chapter 834. And this keeps Luffy's journey along the one distinct path, which is a concept surprisingly unique to One Piece. In most other shonen series, our heroes will go on several different
I
large
remember that. These like huge fucking beasts, right? Like sea beasts like that.
One Piece. In most other shonen series, our
Like, look at their ship compared to that. Jeez, they could be like swallowed whole and the whole fucking story would end, no?
heroes will go on several different large adventures throughout the course of its run, and these are what make up the arcs. But in One Piece's
Wait, what
case,
is that?
One Piece. In most other shonen series, our heroes will go on several different large adventures throughout the course of its run, and these are what make up the arcs. But in One Piece's case, it's always the same journey along the same path, to the point that you can actually chart Luffy's route out on a physical map. And the sub-arcs come from the various different islands or land masses the crew encounters along the way. This works particularly well as it makes the core story of One Piece very easy to understand, while also allowing for a massive amount of variety in the series sub-arcs. Some can be very simple, like the Barty arc, in which the Straw Hats visit a famous sailing restaurant in order to recruit a chef.
That's
Or
cool.
very complicated like the Dressrosa arc, in which the crew must untangle a web of political intrigue and face down a vicious and tyrannical false king. And because of how the arcs are structured, with literal massive quantities of ocean between them, there's no real limit to the kind of stories One Piece can tell. They start off fairly villain of the week-esque, with most enemies being rival pirate captains, but as we move on, we see the Straw Hats embroiled in government conspiracies, abducted by massive haunted ghost ships, springing jailbreaks, and even being at the center of large-scale global conflicts. And throughout the
That's
entire
cool, man.
adventure, there's this real genuine sense of time and progress. When Luffy sets out on his journey from Fuchsia Village, he has little more to his name than a wooden dinghy and his straw hat. And now, 20 years later, he's an infamous pirate warlord, the world-famous captain of one of the most renowned pirate crews in all of existence, the Straw Hat Pirates, of whom include a master samurai, a technologically advanced pantsless cyborg, and even an undead violinist with a awful, amazing sense of humor. One of the core joys of One Piece is watching Luffy slowly ascend in status and build his crew as each
Ooh,
new
that's
battle
cool.
propels him closer to his dream while also increasing his notoriety worldwide. It's not ever a story you could accuse of moving quickly, but it is always moving, and I think it's only when you look back that you see how far Luffy and his crew have actually come. Of course, the success of an adventure series is largely dependent on the world the adventure takes place in, and this is another area where the series shines. One Piece's world, to put it simply, is the largest, most intricately detailed and well thought out of any of the long-running shonen series, which may not be obvious from the offbeat cartoonish designs of Oda's artwork, but make no mistake, this is a world of layers, with its own government, economy, cultural and racial divides, with many, many different factions, all of whom have their own philosophies and motivations. While
That's
Luffy and his
cool.
crew are often at the center, or at least involved in large-scale global incidents, the world also progresses entirely separate to them. Major plot incidents completely separate from the Straw Hats are common, and when they do occur, they reverberate throughout the world on such a scale that it drastically affects the lives of every character in it, such as Porticus D. Ace's showdown with Blackbeard that resulted in the Great Summit
Blackbeard.
War. It always feels like there's a larger picture in One Piece, and depending on the global political climate of the time, Luffy and the Straw Hats' allies and enemies can switch from arc to arc, giving the world this intriguing, ever-changing dynamic. And so One Piece's world succeeds on a grand scale, But what may be even more impressive is the characters that Oda has filled it with. What at first can seem like a cartoonish gag character can, through Oda's storytelling, become a portrait of life at its cruelest and most tragic. And this information is often delivered through weighty flashback stories, in which we're taken through the key moments of a character's life. And while a badly used flashback can utterly kill the momentum of a series, Oda uses them in such a way to give his characters weight, grounding, and motivation that otherwise just wouldn't be possible. Like, seriously, you see this dumb looking idiot in a diaper? This is Senor Pink, and this guy has a backstory that is absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah,
and upon
okay.
hearing it, it completely changes everything about how you see him.
Okay.
Moving swiftly along. Actually, no, wait, no. I know some of you out there don't believe me, so we're gonna prove it. Let's do this. Senor Pink started out his adult life as a me.
I don't know if I can believe that, but okay, let's
So
go.
we're gonna prove it. Let's do this. Senor Pink started out his adult life as a member of the brutal Don Quixote crime family, where his days were frequently filled with criminal activity and brutal violence. Until one day, in the pouring rain, he met a woman who he immediately fell in love with. They got married, had a child, and for a while at least, everything was perfect. Except that Pink was still involved in the Don Quixote family, which he hid from his wife for fear that she might leave him. One day he's called away on a secret mission and disappears for an entire week, and upon returning, discovers that the day he left, his precious son had passed away, and now his wife, furious and heartbroken, demands an explanation, and he tells her everything, at which point she demands he stay away from her, rushes from the home in the pouring rain, before getting into an accident that leaves her in a vegetative state. Pink, devastated by the
this is
events,
fucked.
visits her every day in hospital, until one day, on a whim, puts on a bonnet reminiscent of their son in an attempt to entertain her, and miraculously, she cracks a small, delicate smile. And so, for the sake of seeing his wife smile, he continues to dress more and more elaborately, even enduring the ridicule of everyone around him.
Wow,
Years
man.
later, his wife too has passed, but he still dresses this way out of remembrance for her and of his beloved son.
Dude,
and
that's
so,
really
one of the
sad.
silliest looking characters in One Piece actually has legitimate character motivation for
Yo, that got me in my feels, man. That's really fucked up.
dressing this way. And in justifying this, he becomes an actual grounded, tangible character. What really gets me here is that this is one tiny, inconsequential character in One Piece's world. And yet still, Oda manages to imbue him with a sense of depth and grounding many writers fail to give even their main protagonists. And that's to say nothing of the amazing job Oda's done in establishing the main major heroes and villains of One Piece's story.
This guy
Having
looks
so
cool.
many characters with such fleshed out histories and motivation is the primary factor that makes One Piece's worlds feel so vivid and alive, and makes each individual character feel like a true story in their own right. The last thing I'd like to talk about with One Piece is also one of its least tangible elements, and that is the creativity and imagination that's gone into it. There's always a sense that when reading One Piece, Oda himself is enjoying the world and characters more than anyone. It can be seen in the new and creative ways Luffy uses his at first seemingly limited power. It can be seen in the bizarre visual design of many of the world's inhabitants and the camaraderie that takes place between the Straw Hats, and even in the ever-evolving unique structure of Oda's story arcs.
Why is it all
He
black
always
and
seems like
white?
an author not striving to hit a deadline, but an artist creating a world and story distinctly of his own vision. This is something we're going to dig a lot deeper into in a future video, but for now, just trust me, simply no one writes a story like Ichiro Oda. So with all that in mind, where should you start? Well, the obvious answer is page 1, chapter 1.
Of course.
The manga is for the most part a fantastic read, but I
I'm not gonna
understand
read it.
people's reluctance to get into it given its insane length. And the anime comes with many of its own issues too, such as a weak production run and masses of filler. But if you're curious to know if One Piece really is for you or not, or even if you just want to dip your toe in, allow me to present a different option, and that is the fantastic One Piece Movie 6, Baron Amatsuri and the Secret Islands. Directed by Mamoru Hosoda of the Digimon movie The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer
Digimon,
Wars,
wow.
the movie encapsulates, in a digestible 90 minutes, everything that makes One Piece as a series so much fun, on top of having some absolutely gorgeous animation and character
Damn.
designs, and one of the darkest and hardest right turns I've seen in any film for a while. It requires basically no prior knowledge of One Piece or its world to enjoy, and I think even if you have zero interest in One Piece, seeing one of Japan's most talented directors put his own unique spin on the world of pirates is absolutely worth
Yo,
checking
this guy's
out.
cold, man.
Guys, that's going to do it for my intro into One Piece, and there is still a ton more we need to talk about. The characters, their themes, Oda's unique visual aesthetic, and what cursed fruit he ate in order to actually be able to constantly produce a manga of such quality. And we shall in a full-blown why you should watch/read One Piece coming later this year. But I hope this video, at the very least, has given you a foothold with which to get started. And
Okay, guys, so that was actually really fucking interesting, man. Okay, so this was about reading, but I don't think I'm gonna read it. I think I'll rather watch it, you know, watch the thing instead of reading. But man, that backstory on that guy with that was dressing like a baby, that was actually kind of insane, man. That actually got me really in my feels. So, but when I get to 500 subs on this channel, I'll post a poll and you guys can decide what I should watch. Like what series I should watch. Well, anyways, guys, thanks for the support. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a sub. Recommend your recommendations down below, and peace.